Okay, welcome everybody. This is Gavin Mehl. We got a special guest with us today, Alex Fauvel, all the way from the Netherlands, originally from France, also does time in Great Britain, and he's joining us from across the pond. So, Alex, how you doing, buddy? Nice to meet you personally.
Good to meet you. Yeah, I've seen quite a few of your videos, so it's good to actually talk on one. This is, I think, the first time we're speaking on camera or even face to face. I did see you go past at a Coin Geek in London, but that was a long time ago now, nearly a year. So,
Hey, well, sounds like it. Thanks for watching, and it seems like you've watched some of the past videos that you've seen. So, what's your any sort of feedback that you can give me or the audience?
I think you're being very objective and very matter of factual. You're also talking to almost anyone and everyone that's willing to, which is very open about what's been going on. Obviously, I know your history with Luna and then coming into the BSV space and seeing the chaos that is happening in this niche of the crypto market. It can be the most epic roller coaster of your life or an absolute nightmare if you're over leveraged. My journey was actually like, so when I first saw Bitcoin, I was like, okay, so I'm coming out of university, going into the workplace, and they're asking for a pension scheme contribution. And I looked into the history of the pension schemes, and I was like, well, this is a Ponzi scheme just on a generational level type system. And well, my generation looks like it's going to be the last one holding the bag. So uh, I don't really want to do that. But also, I've just come across this Bitcoin thing, which, well, if I'm going to have to put money into something, why don't I just start putting it into that? So that's kind of the ethos I did. And then once that nest egg was big enough, I kind of went, right, well, I might as well dive into the try and build a career in here because once you understand Bitcoin, you understand that it could be bigger than the internet as a concept, because it fixes the internet's problems. Uh, it's a question of what are the problems of the internet. The white paper quite clearly says that it's microtransactions, and having to give a data packet to a financial intermediary to do trade between each other. Bitcoin got rid of that in that I can send a transaction directly to you and then you take it to your bank, which is the Bitcoin network. The Bitcoin network is not a financial institution, it's just a protocol, it's a language. You are adding an entry to the database, and that can be an entry for cash, euros, dollars, whatever you want, gold. But I also was like, okay, so maybe I should have a diversified portfolio with commodities and stuff if I'm going to do this. And I started questioning gold, going, well, if this is a scarce commodity, the most scarce commodity the world has ever seen, why would I hold gold? You know, uh, because if it if this was back in 2013, right? So everyone had these sort of crazy ideas. If Bitcoin becomes the money that everyone is using, well, then all the gold in the central banks, starts going into the production market because it's kind of not really worth anything as much as what people believed it was, because it no longer has to be the trusted third party ledger for accounting of governments or the people. Um, so I kind of wrote that off, and then I was like, well, go all in terms of career, build the things that you're imagining. So I was an engineer um, in at UCL, but also uh, at a factory, actually. Automotive tier one company, but actually building the machine that builds the cars and stuff, which Elon Musk has said quite categorically is much harder than building one of the thing. Like anyone could build a prototype, building it at scale to produce millions of them is very difficult, uh, which is kind of indicative of what Bitcoin is in terms of transactions. If you can process the world's transactions better than anyone else for cheaper, more ri more reliably, uh, it's going to make every other company look very small in comparison. So it was the obvious like place to go in terms of a career, but the crypto Bitcoin world had a lot of surprises in for us. Um, yeah,
All right.
so
So,
that's kind of the angle I was coming from.
so it's kind of your angle and your story, but take us a little bit more back into getting to know a little bit more about you. We heard you started a university, you became an engineer, you're kind of discovering Bitcoin, you're going between gold and trying to figure
Yeah.
things out. But it sounds like you grew up in France and then decided to become an engineer. So help us
Well,
understand a little bit more
no, I
about
didn't grow up in France. Sorry,
it. Oh, okay.
I moved to England very early on, but I was born in France.
Okay, so take
So
us a little bit more back into those days and what brought you, who made you be the man that you become now. Something, something.
oh, yeah, I come from a effectively a divorced parents, so I was with my mum in England. Um, and that's kind of interesting because I've always thought that I was a bit connected with Craig through a upbringing that he may have shared just in a different generation. Um, so I feel like I understand him very well. But you know, it's difficult to say categorically whether he's telling the truth all the time. But given the things that he's done, because I do believe that he was at least involved in Bitcoin since 2011, and I do believe that he possesses all the skills to build Bitcoin before that. Um, and he was around the same people that were building Bitcoin. I do think that it's highly likely that Bitcoin was his idea. Um, Whether he wrote every single line of code, I don't know. Do I care? Typically, with something like this, it's so beautifully simple that if you try and discuss it conceptually with anyone, they always try and attack it from every single angle until you just build it and prove it. And that's exactly what he did. And that's probably one of the reasons why he put it under a pseudonym, because everyone around him told him it will never work. Maybe it was also to, fight the swarm, as Satoshi puts it. But I think that a large portion of it will be that people said won't work. Today, people still say it won't work, and we've got Terra Node going 1 million transactions per second, which is I want to see that on mainnet, but again, they will say it's spam because they move the goalposts every single time. When we forked from 1 megabyte, they called transactions up to 2 megabytes spam, and it's like you can never win with these people. So eventually, someone just needs to come up with a product that onboards the entire world to Bitcoin. Um, and
Okay,
I
let me
think
add to
that's
that.
dark to light, which
You
is
just, you just, that's dark to light. Okay,
yeah.
so you just mentioned the buzzword, and that was actually I just getting off this big conference from the hackathon in San Francisco, and that was part of the problem that people were trying to solve is that they want to get to the Terra node, but how do we just get the regular person? How do we just onboard the regular person? They don't care about Terra.
Well, so interestingly, if you're trying to onboard someone into Bitcoin, the first question you normally kind of gauge is that, do you have any Bitcoin? And if you scan the QR code on that, I don't know whether it's focused. Is it focused?
It's a little bit, yeah, not enough to scan it, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, I'll send you a picture of it and maybe you dump an image in. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, the question is, do you own any Bitcoin? That's normally the first question you ask. Uh, my game doesn't require you to own any Bitcoin. You don't even need to know anything about Bitcoin because it's physical. You just have questions, and they can be controversial questions. So this question came from one of our Kickstarter backers. Did the world did World War III start in 2020? Okay, so that's quite an interesting conversation, especially for this year, because why would it have started in World War III? 2020. Well, maybe it's because of the election, one of the interesting things about the 4 year cycle is that Bitcoin's is also 4 years, which is this year. Craig has always said that that's because of a political cycle. Um, and to me, as an engineer, that makes sense because if you're building something like Bitcoin, you try and replicate nature as much as possible because we know nature works. Okay. Um, and when you look at what Bitcoin is, if it's left alone, it's a very natural ecosystem with a stable foundation. Um, and if you replicate the things that are the society that is, you know, building on top of nature, you have the highest chance of success. Um, so why the 21 million limit? If you go to my Reddit account, which is under a different name, but the first question I asked when I went into the ecosystem was, why is it 21 million and then divided by 8 decimal places? At the time, the CIA fact book said that that was the M1 amount of dollars to the cent in uh, uh, in circulation. So to me, it seemed like it was definitely going to be
21 million?
no, 21 quintillion or 2.1 quintillion, which is the same number of Satoshis as there are in the blockchain. And the decimal point, it's just a wallet. You can put it wherever you
Wait,
want.
are you saying
Um,
that at the time that Bitcoin was created, that the amount of Satoshis were the amount of dollars?
if you mapped it 1 to 1, it would be 1 Satoshi per 1 US dollar cent, which
Oh,
is
one
why,
cent. 1 cent. Got it.
yeah, yeah. Was it 1 cent?
Wow.
Yeah.
Is where did that
So
come?
it was matching very closely. And people have said it's because of a buffer overflow. But when you think about how the blockchain works, that number is never going to, you're never going to get near it because it's always spread among many addresses. So, you can safely be under the margin. I mean, it's less than the 32-bit or whatever it was that everyone said it was for. But it's also easier to calculate. It, I mean, that stuff, everything that Craig has said makes sense from an
Well,
engineering perspective.
but where did this 1 cent to one Satoshi come from? Where did you hear about this?
The CIA fact book, if you go to it, it used to be online, but they took it down. I'm sure it's in the archives, web archives, maybe, unless the CIA told them to take it down.
The
But it was
CIA
just like a
what?
fact book about interesting things
Oh, a fact book.
about, yeah, just like a dossier that anyone could download. It was public. I'm sure someone's got a copy of it somewhere, but once they took it down, I was just like, okay, fine, not important. But that's the kind of tactics that we're dealing with in this game. Is that people change history, and one of the ways they change it is by removing the evidence of what they were publishing or doing before. Um, so it's understandable that people come and go so much.
Right, so
Um,
let's go back into, you mentioned onboarding get Bitcoin, but before we go into that, just can you take me a little bit more about your experience? I mean, I saw you on a lot of the spaces with, during the Satoshi trial, been really involved. I saw you on the Satoshi Twitter. You were on the Satoshi Twitter page,
yeah,
weren't you?
yeah, the Satoshi Twitter handle.
Yeah.
Interesting that we got, when I say we, I mean someone in the MetaNet ICU Slack got hold of it shortly after the BSV fork, I think. Um, and then, they kept it very secretive. And it, after years of silence of building up a few followers, they suddenly post the white paper on the 10th anniversary. And then it got a lot of followers, maybe was it 20,000, which was big for anyone in BSV at the time. I think we've got a number of people with more than 20,000 followers now. But then it just kept on growing as they continued to post. And they wanted to do a Twitter space leading up to the case as like a look, let us try and explain the perils of the Bitcoin industry uh, from the people that we think understand Bitcoin, and that's from the BSV perspective. Um, and I got a lot of flack for shilling my game in the first space because I think people expected like the account to talk and it was supposed to be like a muffled voice or something. But that's not like a very honest thing to do. So we just kind of said the account is not going to speak. The intention was to hand it over to Craig after the trial. I don't see why. Well, actually, no. Then we got hacked, didn't we? On the first of this year. So speaking of important dates and stuff, this year that's when they took it off on the 1st of January. The theory is that someone that used to work at Twitter still has access and uh, quite often will reset the account even though they've given it over to someone else, and then they'll sell it each time. So the theory is that it was sold on the black market to someone that's using it to sell something else. But we've got a replacement account. I think it's N_Satoshi or something similar.
Seems like there was a guy at the Super Bowl wearing that shirt that used to work at Twitter. He was wearing that.
Yeah, Jack Dorsey. Yeah, next to Jay-Z,
What
I
if he
think.
has anything to do with that?
Well, yeah, being directly involved in Copa and then tweeting out the win, which I think is premature. Even though everyone says it's very clear in what he said, I think it's still premature to call it a victory. Um, and that just comes from experience. You know, you always think you're dead and down, but at the end of the day, you get up and carry on. Um, and you live to fight another day. Craig's in the precarious position where uh, if he doesn't prevail in this one, he could end up in prison. Um, I don't think he's going to. That's my opinion because the number of steps required to do that is a bit insane. Um, but
So,
Ryan seems to be trying quite hard, and a lot of people that feel they've been traumatized by Craig and everything he's been saying.
yeah, but
I feel like
you
Craig has
were
given me an education.
you were there watching the trial every single day because I saw you on the spaces. So why don't
Yeah.
you just take a, I mean, you could speak from your own personal experience. I mean, you not only were watching it, you were reciting it word for word at times.
Well,
So
yeah, it's interesting reciting it word for word. Actually, less of it goes in because you're concentrating on what word to say as opposed to following along logically. Um, but I have listened to most of it back, and we talked every break. We talked for hours afterwards. I mean, at some point there was 24/7 BSV spaces with 200 people in, I think, every single day. Um, and we put the work in, and uh, we're very reserved about how we're viewing it because we watched everything. Um, and we think that there are some major inconsistencies in the Copa side. Yes, there are inconsistencies in Craig, but Craig isn't perfect. And Craig isn't he isn't the second coming of Christ. And I'm glad that Ryan has acknowledged that. And we need to stop saying that because actually, I think it's a disservice to uh, a lot of people's view of the world to start comparing people to those kinds of things. Um, but people are always going to do it. And I mean, I don't know what Ryan's thinking, clearly.
it seems like you're going off into one of the other people in the space, and you want to discuss that. So for those who
Yeah.
don't know what you're talking about, can you give a little background on this person and what you're
So Ryan X Charles was one of my heroes in the space. uh, because he came out early on in the block size wars to kind of try and talk sense into people. And he came from somewhat of a position of authority because he worked at BitPay, he worked at Reddit, and then he kind of got lost a little bit and did his own company when he found out that Bitcoin was Turing complete from Craig. And it's not that Craig was the first person to say that to Ryan, which is why I think Ryan is a bit more cautious than a lot of other people. Ryan worked with a computer scientist, I forget his name, but he said Ryan was teaching him about Bitcoin, and Ryan said it's got two stacks, and this guy went, "That sounds like an automata, a two push down automata, which is a Turing. It's basically one of the most simple computers that can calculate any number. So basically, do whatever your phone can do." Um, on chain in Bitcoin script, which meant that Bitcoin was the world computer that Ethereum was promising. Um, but Bitcoin scales because it's a UTXO set and a Merkle tree, which is so, when you understand why it's structured like that, it's so brain deadly simple, why it is those things, that it makes you question everything that everyone else in the cryptocurrency space is doing, because they're clearly making some fundamental errors when it comes to building a scalable blockchain. So why would they know anything about anything else? Solana's block time is what, 10 seconds or 5 seconds? Uh, some guy on stage at this recent Bitcoin conference with, what's his name? Jack or John. He developed a Lightning wallet and has been
Jack
on
Mullers,
CNBC. Jack
Jack
Palmer's.
Jack Mallers. Yeah,
Malice.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
yep.
yeah, yeah. Um, he started talking about the timing of Bitcoin, and he's absolutely spot on. But this is something that we've known for a long time in at least Bitcoin, and because it's from Satoshi's writings, the block time is slow, so that it gives time for the block to propagate, validate, and then all the other competing miners to start on the next block. Um, And if you pull that too tight, the whole thing goes out of sync. And you get a lot of orphans, which then you've potentially got to keep track of because they've got double spends in potentially that, you know, it just increases the work that you have to do to figure out who's honest and who's not. A lot of these attacks people say are theoretical, and a lot of them are, but we don't necessarily know how theoretical they are until someone does them. Um, yeah, like selfish mining. Craig also taught everyone about that. Ari Cookie proved it, so props to him for doing that.
All right. So,
Although he's,
is there something that you wanted to finish up on with? You mentioned Ryan X Charles, and I think you mentioned his partner was.
I think he's just, yeah, I think Ryan X Charles is being emotional. I think he's also been manipulated by both sides, and he's looking for a home, as someone put on Twitter, uh, as uh, as most people are in crypto. They just need to find one that works. And as soon as one works, then we're good. And my bet is BSV. And Ryan believes that that relies on Satoshi Nakamoto. And I think that's the last I'm going to say about Ryan.
Okay, let me
Wasn't planning on mentioning him at all, but when he did a Twitter space, um, I thought that it was brave, uh, and I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have gone against him anyway. But
let me ask you this. So, on some of the technical sides, before we go into onboarding, and I want to talk about your game and how we may be able to onboard people, but what is can you think of like things that can only be done on the Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin protocol from an engineering perspective that can't
a
be
hundred
done
year
on,
mortgage,
pardon?
100-year mortgage. If you keep, every other chain is changing all the time because they've got leaders. Um, Craig has come back with the express mission of making sure that the protocol is set. That means that I can preserve my wealth on that chain. That's it. That's the secret in crypto that everyone is ignoring because they want control and they want to make sure that mistakes don't happen on their terms. And that's a big issue because it's like, well, who are you to say that anyone else can do anything else? We've got these things called governments, which, you know, society created for a reason. Um, if you want to start shaking those foundations, blockchain's not the right technology because it's all public. Um, that's just how government's supposed to be. Government's supposed to be public. That's why it's public office. I think one of the biggest problems in the world right now is that um, a lot of what people do in public office is shrouded in secrecy. And I would like to open that up. Uh, and Bitcoin's perfectly designed for that. Perfectly designed for that.
See if I can summarize what you just said, if I understand it correctly. So I asked if what the things what's something that could be done on Bitcoin that it can't be done anywhere else, and you said 100-year mortgage. So
Yeah,
all right, so that means that that what the protocol will not change. Can you elaborate on that?
100%. The protocol's not going to change as long as that is the goal. And because at the moment there are still opcodes, and this has been annoying so many people that have been paying attention. Some of the opcodes are still not re-enabled, and that's an issue. I don't know what the issues technically are because I'm not a computer scientist. I'm know what code can and cannot do. I'm not necessarily the best person at architecting the direct function of an opcode. It took me a while to understand why nlock time verify. So if you don't know, nlock time verify is just the creation of a transaction that becomes uh, spendable at a certain point in time. It took me a long time to figure out, when I say long, like 4 weeks or so, of actually thinking about it, to figure out why having a transaction that was valid and then becomes invalid is a problem on Bitcoin. And it is obviously because once it's in the blockchain, if it then becomes invalid after it's been in the blockchain, uh, you can no longer spend from that transaction anymore. Um, it's like creating something permanently there that it's like putting gold in a vault that you can never move. That's not the purpose of Bitcoin. The purpose of Bitcoin is to compute things. So ideally, we should be doing that with it, and that's what will give it value in the future. At the moment, it's nothing, and I mean that in every real sense.
So
Uh,
back to just the simple terms for the layman perspective, and they're like evaluating all these different blockchains, and everything sounds really good. And back to the question, well, what can Bitcoin do that no other protocol could do? And it sounds like this is the first time I've really heard this, the 100-year mortgage, where it's not going to change. I mean,
well, so
and are the other
the
ones all
Guinness
going to change?
factory,
Are all the others going to
we've just
change?
had, well, that's what they're doing right now, and they show no sign of stopping at all, like none. So it's kind of crazy to say, oh, well, Bitcoin is hard to change. This is the BTC side of things. Bitcoin is hard to change, and that's a good thing. Well, I mean, I've got a question for you. I did pull it out. Should people vote on the properties of money, right? Should we have a vote, which is one person, one vote, to say we need more money circulating the system? And I think the answer that everyone intrinsically knows is no. So quite simply because the answer should always be no.
Meaning the
It's
supply should be fixed?
in my opinion, yes. I know that this is a crazy concept to people, but I think that maybe you could tie money creation to um, something that you measure in government. But the problem with that is if you know anything about how governments run things, it tends to be you need to hit certain metrics. You have to hit certain numbers. So what they start doing is doing anything they can to increase those numbers so that their budget is bigger next year. And then once you start doing that, those numbers become completely meaningless. If you're optimizing for something that people are optimizing for, if you're optimizing for something that people will financially manipulate, it becomes a meaningless metric, which is kind of like hash power is a meaningless metric for security, partly because once it's established that if you perform an attack, you have to do it in public if you want to get paid, the attacks become pointless. Because then everyone knows you stole it. So there is no incentive to attack. It's kind of like that scene in A Beautiful Mind. If you've seen it with Russell Crowe.
Uh, Take me back into it. It's been a long time.
So there's this scene where he comes up with the whole concept of game theory and the prisoner's dilemma when he's in a bar drinking with his friends, and he points out this pretty blonde that comes into the room. She looks at him or something, and he calculates the only way for them to all get laid is to not go for the blonde, to go for her friends. But they have to kind of agree to do that, because they all want the blonde. But if they go for the blonde, then her friend's a second choice. No one wants to be second choice. Um, so he came up with this whole theory of game theory about how to apply it to economics and choices, uh, and won the economics. I can't remember which Fields Medal or something. There's so many awards these days that I also kind of understand the Satra post,
He won a prize
because,
for it, you're saying.
well, Satoshi Nakamoto is the prize to a lot of people. But when you actually analyze the situation of what Satoshi Nakamoto, claiming the name Satoshi Nakamoto would be, it would be giving up like everything. It would be, your life would be torn apart immediately. And that's exactly what is happening right now. Whether Craig is or is not Satoshi Nakamoto is irrelevant to that fact. Their lives would be torn apart. And that's a scary prospect, that you can give away potentially the greatest gift ever to mankind. You can watch them absolutely destroy it, and you can come and try and save it. And you're just treated in a way that, you know, it makes you angry that society does that to people. If he is telling the truth, if he's a psychopath, I don't think he's a psychopath. I think he's an autist with some problems. And doing the things he's doing, I've worked quite closely with some of the people that have helped write the patents. In fact, I've got a patent on blockchain and steganography, because that came up in the trial as well. It's coming up to its uh, final approvals. It takes a long time to get a patent. I don't think the people that are professing patent trolls understand how long it takes to get a patent, especially to come up with the idea of creating one, especially in the blockchain space where everyone thinks that they can do everything open source. Um, but interestingly, steganography is typically used for DRM. And one of the problems with the Bitcoin network is that it's public. So we need to start using digital rights. We need to start using our data in a more secure way that's intrinsically linked to the blockchain. Some data needs to go on the blockchain, some doesn't. But I think one of the most important things that I definitely want on the blockchain is my ID. And that consists of everything that is connected to my ID, including degrees, which I've got up on the wall, birth certificates, mortgages, whatever it might be. And it's very important that it can do at least 100 years without major changes, um, because that's at least the average of a person. But mortgages can go a lot longer than 100 years. The Guinness factory in Ireland has 1,000-year mortgage. Um, and I think they pay dollars or £5 for it every month or every year. I can't remember. But
Wow.
it's, finance is something that can move very, very quickly, or it can move very slowly. But it's kind of like the ocean, right? A good wave to surf is just in the middle between tsunami and you know steepness. But yeah, we're dealing with a tsunami here. We're not dealing with a surfing wave, which is what all the crypto people think we are dealing with. Although
Well, when you say
they want
tsunami,
to say,
not a surfing wave, what metaphor are you referencing to?
oh, well, it's going to be we're kind of in a tsunami wave at the moment because so many people are bailing. If you try and surf a wave that's too big, you're going to get a lot of failure rates, and that's what we've had in BSV. Basically, anyone that started a business on BSV has failed. I started a venture capital fund, and we raised 2.7 million euros that we've deployed, um, and that fund is now fully deployed um, after uh, after the next month or so. And then it's a question of raising the next fund. But doing that with the current rhetoric is going to be impossible. So we need to onboard the entire world for my next fund to really make sense.
Okay. Now can I add to that? It sounds like you want to
Yeah,
talk
sure.
about, we need to onboard. So all right, this is a good time to maybe bring up what happened there at this last weekend at this hackathon, because there was a heated debate where, F bombs began to be dropped between the degens and the boomers. All right. And the degens
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
were the Jack Lew and the Josh Petties this crew who have been incredibly successful, making millions of dollars. And then
Yeah.
there's what they call the boomers, which is the old way, like the
Yeah.
BSV Association, right? So, and that would seem to be the argument. Well, we need to onboard the world right now. We need to get the consumers what they want. Forget about all this other long-term stuff. We've done enough of it. So, and that
Yeah.
was the big debate. So, how do we do that? It sounds like you have a possible way that could be done.
Yeah. So the venture capital fund it was focused on enterprise. Um and as things develop, plans change. So the way this is going to happen is that these cards are basically like uh, polls, and they're all unique. And I've got a website selling them,
All right. So
and they're
can I?
play.
Do you want to ask? Can we play it right now, or do you want to ask me, or can I ask a
Yeah.
question? Or
Do you want to do the physical or do you want to do online? I guess we're dealing with BSB people, so why don't we do online? Can you allow me to share my screen, and I'll show
yeah, you
you
should be
what
able to
the
share your
online
screen.
platform is.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Uh, Share the screen. Yep. Is it available? Can you see it?
Yeah, right now I see dark to light website.
Yeah, so this is private right now because we've done our private beta where we tested some features and now we're coming into public beta where payments will be real. Um, well, I don't want to give an exact date, but the plan is before April 1st. And you can say whether it's all an April Fool's and a hoax, and I'm lying. It should be before April 1st. I'm not going to promise anything though, because I've learned in development that you never promise dates, because things can
Ooh,
change
so
quite
did you come up
dramatically.
with this game?
Yeah, I did.
Was your idea?
So Yeah, and it's a very simple idea. That's the beauty of this game because it takes existing ideas and smashes them together and creates something new, which is the basis of all invention. And I'm pretty sure that like 5% of the world has had something like this idea before, because essentially it's kind of like direct democracy, but I don't like politics and I prefer to avoid it. So this is more like a joke online to make some money from memes.
So
And the
this last
memes,
weekend I had about 50 or 6, people or so, or let's say we had 10, I mean even 20 and we were all hanging out as much as 50 at times.
Yeah.
And we could have used, I mean, could we have used this somehow and created
Yeah, you can
morale?
use it in the physical or you can use it online. So
Okay.
there
All right, how
are
does it work?
oh, the game works very simply. Now you're going to have to use your imagination a little bit, but we've got yes, no cards, right? You've got two at the start of every round. So those are your cards, and these are my cards. Now, people keep on going, oh, but if you vote and then pick up another card, everyone knows how you voted from which card you pick up. That's why you get rid of at the beginning of a round you have two cards, at the end of the round you have none. You put down both cards. So it's kind of like at the end of poker, you don't want to necessarily tell everyone what you've got because you're going to do a secret ballot with the lid of the box. It's got vote on it. So it's very easy to know what to do with this box. You, I vote on a question and you vote on a question, but the question is Michelle Obama a man? Right? I've read that on the internet a lot, and they're currently asking it about the French Prime Minister's wife. So I don't know what the hell is going on in the world at the moment, but I would like to know what everyone else thinks about that because, in essence, how can you gauge how psyop someone is? You do anonymous voting, and you don't ever find out about a single individual. You find out about everyone that's playing. So I voted for you, and we shuffle, right? There's more than two people, and then I guess I think this is majority yes, and two yeses. So then I would keep the question as a point in my pocket or wherever it might be. You can play this in a bar. You can play this anywhere. I have done. It's how I sold a number of Kickstarter units. Um, so this is a tool that you can use to onboard anyone to Bitcoin without
Okay.
knowing it.
Start me
Because
with this question on the screen. Is that a good place to start? How do
yes.
you have
Oh,
you been to
sorry,
a
yeah,
account?
yeah. So this is the main page where you can actually play. Each of these buttons will pay me a tenth of a cent to vote. So have I ever been to a local council meeting? I think I
Yes.
have been to one. What's
Who's
your answer?
answering the question? Both of us or you? How's that work?
Well, I can answer it for me, and then I can answer it for you in the next couple of questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to say I think I may have been to one, but I'm not sure. So I'm just going to say yeah, no. Uh, three, no. So next question: is God's timing perfect? Well, there's a bit of a precursor questions and stuff to this. Do you want to take this one?
Yes.
Yes. Three yeses. So at the moment, we've only so we made the beta open to our Kickstarters. And at the moment, there's no money flowing, so there's no incentive. So all the votes are a little low. There's only three or four between each one. We had 80 sales on Kickstarter, very low. But we've got 2,000 questions now. And I uploaded about 800. So there's quite a lot of questions that people have contributed to this now. Is there a creator of the universe? I'm going to say yes. Oh, no, apparently. And you just keep on going like that. It's a little slow, a little clunky, but we're only starting out. And one of the coolest things is that as people vote on this, these update. So you scan that, and that number will get bigger and bigger over time. Um, these questions are asked by anyone. So, what do you have a question you would like to ask?
Who
Maybe
created
about
yeah, who created Bitcoin?
It's got to be a yes, no.
Oh,
That's the only.
did Craig Wright create Bitcoin?
I'll give you this question once I.
May want to put DID.
Yeah.
There we go.
Did Craig? Do you want to put his initial in there as well?
Did Craig S. Wright create Bitcoin? There we go. Ask the crowd.
Right. So here's where the money aspect comes in, because when you submit a question to this online platform, when we do future versions of these decks, your question could be in it. So we could pay out royalties for every single one we sell. So that's a real product with real dollars going out into the market. Number one. Number two is you can buy a plot of land, if you want to call it that, on my platform and share in the royalties of the business. Because if your question is popular, it generates income. But to give it a boost, right, you can say, oh, well, I want 2,000 people to vote for this. So the question fee, minting fee is 50 cents. Price per character, so a longer question is more expensive, of 1 cent, which brings a total price for the question itself of 84 cents. Price per vote, if you want to give it a boost, well, I want 2,600 votes on this question, and I pay for it. And then I now own that question in this game. So if you've got a lot of questions about anything that's kind of esoteric, niche, or whatever, you will also be able to put these questions into a pack and on an exchange, buy them and sell them. So you'll be able to create a deck as well as questions and hopefully sell that. But we're nowhere near that at the moment. We need to sell some games with as much marketing as possible pretty soon.
How do
And
people
one of the
get the
ways to do
game?
that, so you go back to the website. If you go to, oh, sorry, I can't even type that properly. You can buy
Buy
it from
now?
here. Yeah.
Oh, buy
So
it on
we've still
Stripe.
got some in stock. I'm not going to tell you how many because, quite frankly, I haven't taken stock in a while. Um, but it's maybe like 20.
So
I
which
might be
one is
able to
it?
give you a,
Tell me which
huh?
one. You got 35 and 55. Do you need both of those?
Yeah. So there is two versions of the game. Um, do I have the other one again? Oh, that's a not safe for work one. 1 second.
Start with the lowest, cheapest version for me.
Um, so this is just a normal Stripe payment that you'd buy this or this. This one's got different questions to this one, plus not safe for work questions, and dares and things. So
Hmm.
there's like features of the game where it's like if you break a rule, you might have to twerk for 30 seconds, or you lose one of the question cards that you've got. But there is a mistake on the Kickstarter versions, which is this QR code doesn't work because I copied and pasted a URL incorrectly.
So
So that
if
is
I want
a
to buy
mistake on my
one,
part. But
if I want to do one, can I get the first one for $35 and you remove the second one?
yeah, so this is just a normal Stripe checkout. We
Now
do
you've
it like
got the
that.
$40 and then $5 to ship it. So now a guy could buy it for exactly $40.
$40. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And we are taking a loss on these at the moment, but the plan is to pump your bags apparently, or people's bags. And I think the only way to do that is to get them to buy questions that pay out Bitcoin when they start making money. Uh, like it's not that I think it should be as easy as possible to onboard anyone you want, whether they're drunk or you meet them in a bar or you have known them for decades. You should be able to onboard absolutely anyone. And I hope this is the thing that does that
So
because
if I
it's
if
pretty
I'm
simple.
playing this game with a guy you're saying at a bar and he's going to scan that QR code, how does he get onboarded?
So if you do scan a QR code, let me see. This is one of the reasons why I was going to do this interview through my phone, but I need my phone for a demonstration. So if I go to the camera app, I'll show you what it looks like. You just open it and it'll come up with the results.
Is Joe
Can you read
Biden?
that?
Yeah. Okay.
And you register, or these buttons at the top need to be a bit bigger, but there's a buy now button, and then that takes you to the physical product, or you can register an account. And when you register an account, oh, this is the live
Does it
site.
go
Let's go
to a
back.
website to where people can onboard with a credit card or something? Or
It will. At the
will? Okay.
moment, we're going to be doing hand cash with login.
Okay.
But we will also, hopefully for launch, right, have deposit $10. Because whilst we're doing the accounting of the questions with Bitcoin, your account can be topped up with dollars. And the only way to get the money out of the account from that is through Bitcoin. So you have to earn the money back effectively. And the only way to do that is to ask questions. What is also coming is referral links. So if you like a question, I know, let's go to history. So is God's timing perfect? Oh no, there should be a boost button on that page, but that's fine. Uh, if you like a question, you can pay 10 cents for a boost. That will buy you a referral link to this question so that when you post it on social media, there will be two questions, one that's paid for and then one that's not. So you get half, and then we split that profit to that question, half to you as the referral link owner and half to the person that asked the question. So there's many ways to make money from this platform potentially.
Hmm.
And if you think that a question is ruining your experience, you can report, but it costs you money. Um, this is I think this is a pretty safe thing to do because we don't do images, we don't do video, we don't do voice recordings. This is just yes, no questions. If your yes, no question doesn't make sense, there's a very high likelihood that no one's going to propagate it further with boosts or anything like that. So it's kind of like freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach, as Elon Musk likes to put it.
Hmm.
But Elon's an interesting character. I kind of want to know how he's going to come back into this whole
Nice.
situation.
All right, so we got the game and perhaps a good challenge. Looks like I'm going to be in London on the in 2 months for this event with the blockchain conference. So
Yeah.
maybe that would be a good time. We had a really successful event in San Francisco here with this hackathon. So if we kind of forecast like a little meetup when we could play this game with a group, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of people there and test it out, in London.
Yeah, that is what I was doing last time, but it was just a dinky little prototype, and I didn't have anything to sell. I was looking to raise money because this product works best when it's got an online element and a physical element.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, it was Jack Pitts that recommended I meet with you. He was holding up the game. He really likes it, and he says that I had to check it out. So, sounds really
yeah,
cool. That it would be fun. It sounds like a fun game to do with friends, where you could ask this game and have a incentive. You know,
yeah. I mean, if you've got a stake in the game with your own question, it's cool to tell your friends about, right? I asked that question. Two, it's even cooler to prove it and prove that you've got the income to it. Um,
Hmm.
you know, I think some of these questions could be incredibly valuable. Um, I'll just tell you the mechanics of them because I don't have to predict, how much each question could make. I can just tell you the mechanic. The mechanic is a tenth of a cent for a vote. So if you've got a billion votes on one question, well, that's $1 million question. So, uh, the ROI you can calculate for yourself because there's a mint fee of 50 cents. But yeah, it's
Now,
a difficult one to grasp because you're like, will this card game make it?
is
The only way to
this
find that out is
is
play
this
it.
card game, Alex, an example of something that can only be played on Bitcoin, the original protocol, or could it be played on
Uh,
another blockchain?
Eventually, if I get all my feature set, yes, this is going to be a game that can only be played on Bitcoin,
Is that because of the
because nothing else
micropayments
scales.
and scaling?
Micropayments and the sheer size of the packets that you can push into a transaction. Up push verify, up push data 4, right? This is the famous opcode that allows you to push a number of bytes that is counted by a 4-byte uh, number. And that means that you can have like 4.2, uh, uh, 2 to the power 4 bits or something. You you
So,
hear these things and you go over them once and they all make sense and you don't necessarily have to go over them before, but it allows a single 4 gigabytes in a single uh, opcode in Bitcoin.
all
Um,
right. So
so that's
with the
huge.
we're coming up on about an hour to wrap this up here. So I just want to before we do that, so just kind of sounds like we summarized on the game. The dark to light kind of gave your
Yeah.
story a little bit. The jack pits is how we can't connected. It sounds like you watched some of the videos. Was there something that you were inspired on with the videos, or you liked that kind of gave you perspective as to why we connected
Yeah,
here?
I feel like you're being very authentic about how you are viewing this entire space, which is kind of a breath of fresh air. Uh, I guess if you're in BSV long enough, the room starts smelling a bit stale.
Hmm.
But hopefully, uh, the more people that come in, it's not someone referred to it as an empty stadium on Twitter, and I thought that was a really good way of looking at it. Um, but if you're in an empty stadium, where do you go? Go to the field or the boxes, right? Well, I'm on the field. I'm happy being on the field. And it's kind of like if we are in a stadium, no one knows what the game is. There's just markings on the floor, and everyone's trying to figure it out. And someone's trying to direct us, and he goes by many names. And it's a question of whether you're listening to him or not. I believe that I'm listening to him very closely, uh, and I try and keep my distance because if it's a tsunami, he's the one causing it. And if you're that close to the source, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, but it's his sword. Uh, I don't want to die by someone else's sword. I want to die by mine.
Hmm. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you're talking about maybe that we could be in a tsunami, or that we're in the tsunami right now. And this empty field analogy is rather unique. Or empty stadium. Said
Yeah.
empty stadium.
It's, you read these things on Twitter and it feels like a waste of time, but it does give you good ideas about how to view things from other perspectives, whether you like it or not. Um, but I don't know, sometimes it can get too much and you need to take a break. Uh, it's just difficult too in the crypto world.
How can people find you, Alex?
Uh, Twitter's probably the best place, and that's a handle of Roman de Fauvel with underscores instead of spaces. Um, yeah,
All right, and it's dark to and the website.
dark to light dot xyz. If you need help, try scanning this QR code. Hopefully that works. Hopefully it's focused. Um, and you can register an account and play. I'm not sure it's going to be live when this video airs. Um, but maybe I'll coordinate with you on that, Gavin. We will actually want to get you an account as well, as soon as we can. Like I said, it'll be hand cash, hopefully, when we do launch in the next week or so.
Nice. All right, sounds good. Well, then I'll go ahead and wrap up the video then. Alex, it's awesome to connect with you. I'll see you in London, and hopefully we can do this again sometime if you're again not open to it, and we can learn more about this. And your perspective is highly valuable. So, any last
Yeah,
words?
it's uh no last words. I guess I'll hopefully do this again before CoinGeek because hopefully we've got some updates for you and
Nice.
your listeners.
All right, thank you, Alex. I'll see you at the top.